I have a bit of an issue with the concept of floor and ceiling, but we'll take on the question here. I get it. So Falconer TRX asking about the win-loss ceiling for Miami.
Yeah. I don't expect this because it's really hard to get there, but the ceiling, I do believe 12-0 is a possibility. Like, honestly and truly, last year, it was not a possibility. It was not in the realm of what could actually have been possible with that team. I believe it is in the realm of what's possible, even if it's at a very infinitesimal kind of ratio. But I believe that the ceiling there is 12-0 and beyond. If I were to go floor, I would say, like, I think that the firm and absolute floor is 8. Like, I struggle absent like a rash of injuries that, rivals, I don't even know what those, whatever year that was that Maryland was playing a linebacker at quarterback. Remember, like, had all four
Yeah.
like scholarship quarterbacks get injured. They had a kid on red shirt who, like, they were not going to play. No, they might have even burned a red shirt and then he got injured and then, like, something like that. Short of something like that, I really don't see fewer than 8. Like, as we look here, as I'm looking at the schedule, FAMU is a guaranteed win. Ball State is a guaranteed win. I don't care what you say. USF is a guaranteed win. That's 3 right there. Wake, Syracuse, that's 5. And then, like, even if I were to say the other 7 games are possibles, then you got to go 3 and 4 in your other 7 games to get to 8. Like, again, with this roster, with as constructed, yeah, I would say ceiling 12-0 regular season, firm floor 8-4, and yeah.
Okay. I maybe take this way too literal, but I would argue that Miami's team could have went 12-0 last year. And that sounds ridiculous because they went 7-5. But if you took each game singularly and said, can Miami win this game? Yes. Can Miami win that game? Yes. And went through all 12 games. Yes, they had the capabilities. They actually lost to the 2 teams that seemed to be the most obvious losses last year, Clemson and Texas A&M.
No, beat them, you mean?
Yeah, they beat them,
Yeah.
meaning those were the 2 teams that they were pegged to. If they were going to lose 2 games, those were the first 2 that came off the board as losses to start the season and turned out to be wins. So, but if you work in probabilities, for example, if you play a game in which you are, let's say, an FPI 60% chance of winning, and then your next game is a 60% chance of winning. If you put those 2 together, that's 60 times 60. You have a 36% chance. I don't think this necessarily translates to football, but 36% chance of sweeping those 2 games. So that's why the probabilities just cascade down for anybody that's trying to go undefeated or have some outstanding record.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can win all these games and be 12-0. Now, can they lose? I say outside of Florida A&M and Ball State, again, applying this, can they lose to any of these teams? Even Wake Forest, even if they're at home against Wake Forest, they have a 92% chance of winning, let's say. Can they lose that game? Yes. So the literal definition for me is, well, it's kind of 12-0 and 0-12, but that's ridiculous. Yeah. It's 12-0 and 2-10. But realistically, I'm going to knock it down to like 7-5. They go to Florida and lose. They lose to Virginia Tech on a Friday night. They lose to Louisville on the road. They lose to Florida State. That's 4. And they trip up against any one of Syracuse, Georgia Tech on the road, Cal on the road, having to play cross country. Yeah. So I'm pretty much right there with you, but I'll tack on the 5th loss as the floor.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, they can not only singularly win each game, just like last year's team, if you line them up against any, but they have the talent to not slip up. It's possible. It's a long shot for anybody to go undefeated. We had 3 teams last year in the regular season go undefeated, correct? Yeah, Florida State, Washington, Michigan. There's usually one, maybe. Seems like there's usually one. So, yeah. 11-1, I would say, is a more likely ceiling, and 9-3 would be a bit of a disappointment, but
yeah,
obviously a much better season than what they've had the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and we're very close to that. And I was going to what I believe to be the absolute extremes. Like, I think that like the reasonable window, as you said, is probably 11-1 to 9-3 for what will actually transpire this season. But yeah. Hey, Mark Rogers predicts Miami 12-0. Nice.
That's what I said. Sure. That's exactly what I said.
And I read that out loud just so that it is saved into perpetuity on the interweb. So there you go.
This is how social media works, and you know this as well as I do. So, for example, and this is not even an egregious type situation, but this is the most recent. I got West Virginia fans all riled up this week because Neil Brown was on the SEC network. Why Neil Brown was on the SEC network, I have no idea. They don't even play any SEC teams, but he was on the SEC network, and he was all hot and bothered because there were no West Virginia players on ESPN's top 100 players. Okay. So he was arguing that his quarterback should be in the top 100. I didn't have any issue with him sticking up for his team, sticking up for his players. I guess he's got a offensive lineman, can't think of the guy's name, who's projected to be a late first, second round selection. So he was talking about him as well. I have no issue with that. He should stick up for his team. And those are 2 really good players. Yeah. However, had he just simply stated, I think we've got 2 or 3 players that should be in the top 100. Hey, I think they missed it here. These guys deserve to be here. I would be totally fine with that. But number one, do the math. There's 70 teams in the Power 4. Therefore, you're talking about an average of 1.2 players per team. So it's not like everybody can have 8 or if you asked every coach, how many of your players deserve to be the top 100 in America, you'd have 950 players in the top 100. So that's first of all, he's focused on his team, biased toward his team. Number 2, he called the list or the makers of the list incompetent and they don't know anything about football. Well, that's a bit much. Yeah. And you don't know if your players were number 101 and 102. You have no idea. So I just kind of called him out as being a bit ridiculous. And these West Virginia fans were all over me because they were taking it to an extreme, saying that I didn't think any of their players deserved to be on the top 100. I didn't say that. I said that their coach was being ridiculous, saying that their list was ridiculous and they didn't know anything about football. Those are 2 different arguments.
Those are 2 very different arguments. And the last one that I'll say in the chat, Pilo, it's 6 from the bottom.
I just had it here.
No, up 2. There we go. Before we leave, last thing, do you think that Mario brings the turnover chain back this year if the season goes as planned? Absolutely not. I could not. The turnover chains are so far from what Mario Cristobal's ethos is. No. Not even in the locker room, not even I couldn't even see them do a social media pic or GIF or something that's created an artifact in the game for a turnover. I think that you'll get those they'll put up stuff on socials, everybody live tweets the games and the media department's doing everything. But I enjoyed them for the time. I advocated for the turnover chain being discontinued even before it was. But yeah, I would put this at a firm 0.0, repeating to infinity % chance. I don't see, like, just as we've seen Mario comport himself as he's here and leading this program. What about that person? What, makes you think that person would allow for the turnover chain to return? I just don't see it. I think it's a great memory. Remember the pictures, but hey.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.